Welcome to part 9 of the series on black dolls. If you are new to the series, I encourage you to first watch the intro video tagged below for context. I'd also like to warn that if you're easily offended by discussions about our unfortunate history in regards to slavery, and if you love Raggedy Ann but you don't want to hear about her part in all of this, now would be a good time to scroll on. In her book, Racial Innocence, Performing American Childhood from Slavery to Civil Rights by Robin Bernstein, she describes racial innocence as a form of deflection, a not knowing or obliviousness that can be made politically useful. Bernstein writes that from the 1830s through the 1890s, black dolls coordinated two main play scenarios, servitude and violence. Scenarios of servitude were embedded in the earliest known visual representation of a black doll in the United States, which appears in the 1831 first edition of Eliza Leslie's The American Girl's Book, a manual of instructive and wholesome activities for girls. This book, which was republished at least 17 times by 1880, was read by generations of American girls. The American Girl's Book taught its reader to make several dolls, including a dancing doll, a jointed linen doll, and a common linen doll, which was a simplified version of the jointed doll. The manual also instructed the reader to make a black doll as a variation of the common linen doll. The instructions were as follows. The linen part must have an outside covering of black silk or black cotton crepe. The frock should be of domestic gingham or calico, and she should have a check apron. A white muslin cap on her head will greatly improve her appearance. You may make a whole family of these linen dolls, representing a mother and several children, among them a baby. A black one may then be added as a servant. This passage overtly instructs a girl reader to sew a doll, but it also provides a narrative for play with the doll as a servant. Leslie first connects the black doll's servitude with its physical constitution, its blackness, its commonness, its apron and muslin cap. However, immediately after the physical description, the passage raises the possibility of black dolls existing within black families, not as domestic servants but as figures of domesticity. You may make a whole family of these linen dolls, representing a mother and several children, among them a baby. If a girl misunderstands these to refer to black rather than white linen dolls, the next line immediately corrects the error. A black one may then be added as a servant. The passage thus posits black dolls as isolated from black families, as inherently fit for servitude, and as natural adjuncts to white families, marginal afterthoughts. In this text, Leslie instructs not only the making of the doll, but also a scenario for play. Literature about dolls, both commercially imported and homemade, provided more detailed narratives about, and thus more specific play scenarios, for black dolls as natural servants. Fiction often associated the name Dinah in Black Dolls and Humans with servitude. For example, Raggedy Ann stories and Uncle Tom's Cabin both feature African American kitchen workers named Dinah. The name Topsy from Uncle Tom's Cabin was also commonly associated with servant dolls. The names Dinah and Topsy did not refer to an identical set of images or ideas, but the two names and figures often collapsed into each other. Doll play's tendency to collapse boundaries enabled multiple facets of culture: instruction for homemade dolls, the manufacture and sale of commercial dolls, historical and fictional girls' practices of naming their dolls Dinah or Topsy, and literature about dolls to merge so as to co-script scenarios in which black dolls served white ones. In other words, girls received a set of mutually reinforcing prompts from divergent sources. These prompts converged to script a diffused, unauthored, performed narrative in U.S. culture. The relationship between the script and historical children's actions was never simple, because children often revised and refused the prompts they received. They did, however, receive and comprehend these prompts toward play scenarios of black doll servitude. As competent performers, most children, especially girls, understood the play scenarios that black dolls scripted. That is, children who were diverse in their genders, races, classes, regions, and personal preferences largely understood how one was supposed to play with black dolls. Literature and material culture co-scripted 19th century practices of play, and white children enacted and thus revised the scripts. This process of reinvention, of repetition with differences, was collective. 19th century doll play was not private. Representational play occurred throughout the home and also outside, where it was witnessed by families, neighbors, and, more importantly, other children. Children and former children describe their play in periodicals and books, further transmitting practices from child to child. The publicity of doll play enabled children to influence each other, to function as teachers as well as pupils. Doll play existed then not only in the context of fiction, instructional literature, and the materiality of playthings, but also in the context of other children's practices. White children, as doll players, were not only repositories and reflectors of racist culture, they were its co-producers. In white children's play, soft mammy dolls endured and persisted and scripted cuddles in the plantation wonderland of the nursery.